All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rakakwadash. And I also want to give double honor to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to those for elect, hearing this word in truth and in sincerity. Okay, my name is Iowa Lamawar from GMS West Palm Beach Camp, back with another lesson. I was meditating on this topic, when I woke up. Pretty much how, they're going to be these people out here, all right, mainly our people, so-called blacks, Latinos, Native Americans, are going to be the same people looking for the wine, when it's not available no more. And we understand that the wine represents this truth, this knowledge, and as I was meditating on this topic, do this lesson, what came to mind was, Sunday when we were at camp, we're out there preaching or whatever, and as we were preaching, bros, were, kind of, trying to ask Jake, why would the world, crucify a perfect man, and the point I want to get out of this is, we don't care whether people stop and listen or whatever, right? But Jake, whenever we pulled Jake over, like we'd ask Jake that I didn't have time for the Lord, you see. But we understand, to them they got more important things to do than to listen to the word. You see what I'm getting at? So we kind of asked Jake, excuse me, I got a question, just something like that, and the question was simple: why would the world crucify a perfect man? And Jake's response was, I don't got time for this, I got stuff to go do. You know what I'm saying? We talking about Jake that look what's the word for it? They weren't up there kind of stuff, like they were the bottom of the barrel kind of, Jake, if you know what I'm saying. Because you got our people that are well-to-do, they got a little bit of money or whatever, and they're out there living up. But then you got Jake, that they counting pennies, if you know what I'm saying, But asking them, a simple question, and they said, okay, but I gotta go because I gotta yada yada yada, and that same mentality, that they don't got time for the Lord, all right, that's gonna work against them in Jacob's trouble, all right, because they're gonna be the same ones looking for the wine. So this is Isaiah chapter 24 and verse 8. It says, the mirth of the tabret ceaseth, the noise of them that rejoiceth endeth, the joy of the harp ceaseth. And going into the music here in Babylon, when these people go and party, when people go and party, they can't deal without the music. You always need music to party, okay? And the Lord is going to have all that shit shut down. Remember what happened during the first go-around of CV-19? Everything shut down and people were inside their homes. People were going crazy, losing their minds, okay? People somewhat got spiritual, but then they started to open up because, things were getting too obvious, for Esau. Our Esau was getting exposed. Things were getting too obvious. So, he opened things back up, But nonetheless, the Lord is going to end all the mirth here in Babylon the Great, America, because this place, they live in pleasure, a lot of our people, so-called blacks, Latinos, and Americans, you got no time for the Lord. Hey, here it is, we just had our Day of Atonement, where we'd refrain from eating or drinking for a 24-hour period, all right, not not too many of our people will be willing to make that sacrifice for the Lord. You know, and that's a small thing compared to what Yahweh Shai did for us, man. You know, but you tell Jake that, you know, Day of Atonement is coming up, and you know they gotta, you know, put food and water to the side for one day for the Lord. You know, they're gonna cuss you out. They're gonna call you bugged out. They're gonna call you crazy. You know, when this was one of our ancient customs, man. You see? So, hey, when that time comes and you won't need the Lord is going to reject you. You know? And we're going to get that in the book of Proverbs, man, because the book of Proverbs always hit concerning how the Lord is going to, act towards Jake when judgment comes forth. You see? We're putting in the spiritual work for the Lord, you know, in hopes that He have mercy for us. But all of our people, what the scripture says, he that soweth to the Spirit will reap of the Spirit life, and he that, you know, sow to the flesh shall reap corruption. That's Galatians chapter 6 and verse 8. You know, if I'm not mistaken. All right, but verse 9 says, "They shall not drink wine with a song. Strong drink shall be bitter to them that drink it." You know, because you know how, you know, hey, let me give you an example. In clubs, right? Inside of a club, you know, they got liquor, they got the music blasting. They know they're enjoying themselves, having a good time. All right? These clubs, these DJ stations, everything, all this shit is gonna be shut down. You know where we go preach. You know, it's a lot of restaurants. All that shit gonna get shut down. All right? And people, they come down here and they eat. You know, especially our people. And Jake is the main ones that do that. You know, I noticed too that you know, because you know you got brothers on one side and you got us on the other. You know, when we're preaching, it mainly be Jake crossing the street so that they don't hear the word. All right, you have Esau. All right, and will appear to be Edomites. It could be Jake. You know, that remains to be seen. You know, but Esau, you know, they'll pass right behind the camera. You know, and you know before they pass, they'll be like, oh shoot, am I being recorded or whatever? You know, but my point is that, you know, we understand that the word is not for the heathen anyway. All right, but that shows you that, you know, Jake rejecting the word like that, you know, crossing the street just so they don't hear nothing, be rebuked. That shows you that they're the Israelites, so-called blacks, so-called Latinos, Native Americans. Because when you read the scriptures, they've always had a problem with the word of the Lord. They've always done something against the word of the Lord. And what we see going on right now is the same thing happening, where they try to avoid the word and they don't want to hear nothing coming out. They cross the street before they pass in front of the camp because they don't want to hear anything that's going to cut their spirit. You know, they out here on a Sunday living it up, probably celebrating Mother's Day, probably celebrating a birthday, you know. So why would I pass in front of those guys so that they can ruin my day? But that's okay though, because you know the time is coming to where, you know, every day is going to be a bad day for you. You know, Jacob's trouble. And to you, it's going to feel drawn out. You know, ultimately the nuclear fire is going to feel drawn out. You know, to the elect, it's going to feel like the days are shortened, because it says, "How for the elect's sake, the Lord shall shorten the days," man. You know, or was it if the Lord don't shorten the days, no flesh shall be saved. Okay, verse 10, it says, "The city of confusion is broken down, every house is shut up, that no man may come in." Right, the city of confusion, Babylon the Great. All right, the word Babylon literally means confusion. Babal is confusion in the Hebrew. All right. So the Lord right now is breaking Babylon down systematically. All right, and eventually this place is going to go down, man. You see? It says, verse 11, "There is a crying for wine in the streets. All joy is darkened. the mirth of the land is gone. In the city is left desolation, and the gate is smitten with destruction. You see? So there's a crime for wine in the streets, man. You know? And I can still envision this. I can still see the vision through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. You know, where brothers camp at. You know, of course, you're going to have those that are of the elect. They're going to come up and listen as they see, you know, prophecy unfold. You know, that's a given. But then, when the famine of the word comes in, we're going to get that. When the famine of the word comes in, and brothers are not out there no more, that means that Yahweh Shem Yahushai has shut things down. You know, and I always like to refer to the times of Noah. Okay? When Noah was out there preaching for years, you know, you can only imagine they scoffed they scoffed at Noah, mocked Noah, because during that time it wasn't never no rain. You know, it never rained during that time period. You know, the ground was watered by dew. You know, the earth was watered by dew. You know, so to hear that rain is coming down, you know, they calling him bugged out, saying, you know, just think about it. They calling him bugged out. He's crazy. He's a conspiracy theorist. You know, get a job, get a life. Just think about everything that they'd be calling us today. They'd be calling Noah. You see that? Put it in that perspective. Okay, so they were living it up. As in the days of Noah, so shall it also come in the days of the Son of Man. You know, they were eating, drinking, marrying, giving into marriage. All right, knew not until the flood came. So it wasn't until that first raindrop came down, or a couple of raindrops came down, you know, they considered it. Oh shit, Noah was right. Then it was raining. That's when they went to bang on the door, but the door was already shut closed. But we're likening that into our time. Yahweh Shah said, as in the days of Noah. So now, you know, that the judgment that's getting ready to happen has never happened on the planet. And we're telling these people that these things are coming, i.e. World War III, nuclear battle, nuclear missiles going to be shot off. All right, America is going to be destroyed via nuclear fire, according to the Bible. You know, all of these things that we're saying. All right, but these people don't believe. Nah, you know, y'all bugging. All right, America is the strongest country in the world. You know, who's taking America now? You know, and that's the pride of Babylon. These people, they've got some sense of security here in Babylon the Great because of the military. All right, but the Lord got something for y'all, man. Okay, the Lord got you on a trick bag. That's why these people are so bugged out and wicked out here, because they believe that, you know, nobody can come against them, especially Esau. All right, but the Lord, the scripture says in the book of Jeremiah, we can get there real quick, but I'm gonna get this in Amos real quick. Amos chapter 8 and verse 11. It says, "Behold, the days come, saith the Lord power, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of bread, nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the words of the Lord." All right. So, you know how people, you know, they like to go out there and, you know, feast and, you know, have fun and whatever. And that famine is coming too, the famine of bread and water. All right, but the true famine, which is the famine of the word. All right, because we need this wisdom and knowledge to be stability. The wisdom and knowledge of Yahweh Shem Yahushai to be our stability in these times, right? According to Isaiah 33:6. Verse 12 says, "And they shall wander from sea to sea, and from the north even to the east. They shall run to and fro to seek the word of the Lord, and shall not find it." Hey, where them Israelites at? You know, I used to see them on this corner. You know, hey, you haven't seen them, right? They're going to be going on the internet, typing in, you know, Great Millstone, this topic, that topic. Great Millstone missiles, all right? Or altogether going Hebrew Israelites, you know, Esau, Edom. The Lord won't put a spirit on Esau to put an end, or to anything talking about, Israelites. All right, so they're gonna be typing in, Hebrew Israelites, and they even gonna be typing in, Black Hebrew Israelites. We don't identify as being Black Hebrew Israelites, but that's what they address us as, man. We are just the Hebrew Israelites. You see? But they're gonna be typing in Black Hebrew Israelites, and nothing gonna come up. Then they're gonna know that they're fucked. They're gonna be running to and fro to seek the word of the Lord. They shall not find it. You see? So all this fucking game plan, all right, you walking down the strip or you crossing the street, all right, so you don't have to listen to the word, that's gonna work against you, Jake. It's gonna work against you. But damn, that precept slipped me. I was gonna get it too. Damn, Salakia. No, you know what? But nonetheless, the point has been made. Jake out here playing games, man. But we're gonna need Yahweh Bashim Yahweh's protection, all right, in the coming days, because Esau Edom, which is the so-called white man, all right, they're ready to wage war, all right, on the tribes, and we're gonna need the Lord more than ever, all right, these times. Like in Egypt, like the Lord delivered us in Egypt. Hey, we're gonna need the Lord to deliver us in these times. Oh yeah, I remember the precept. The water all by Shemiel Shah. All right, that's in the book of Jeremiah. The Lord brought the precept back to mind. The water by Shemiel Shah. Where it says, "Thou art also taken," to the book of Jeremiah. But I'm just gonna type it in real quick to get it. Also taken. Where the Lord said, "I have laid a snare for thee, O Babylon, and thou art also taken." Jeremiah 50 and verse 24, it says, "I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken, O Babylon, and thou wast not aware." Right? They were not aware that they were taken. All right, they were not aware that there's a snare laid for them because of their pride, man. Because of their pride. So they believe that because they got the best military, and we're not going to front. America got a strong military. All right, because that's what the Lord blessed the so-called white man with. The Lord blessed the so-called white man, all right, with the sword. All right, we can read about that in the book of Genesis, the 27th chapter, where Isaac, all right, and if you can receive it, is Yahushua. All right, but Isaac said, "By thy sword shalt thou live." All right, after Jacob received the blessing, Esau wept, for a blessing, and Isaac gave him the sword to live by. You see? So his weaponry, pretty much, all right, his weaponry, his artillery, that's the sword. Because when you think about it, the so-called white man, after his lives don't work no more, all right, the last thing that he resorts to is what he knows the best: war. All right? The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. Esau Edom, all right, which is the so-called white man, war is the only thing, that comes to mind at the end of the day whenever he don't get his way, man. Okay? It says, "And thou wast not aware, thou art found and also caught, because thou hast striven against the Lord." How do they strive against the Lord? By the wicked lifestyle that they live here in America, man. All right? Just everything here in Babylon the Great is against the Lord. The laws, is against the Lord. The behavior, the people, everything is against the Lord. So therefore, the Lord's just going to wipe this place out completely. And these are not our words. All right? These are the words of the Lord. And we're just bringing them out. Because at the end of the day, you can take us off the street corners. You can persecute us. All right? But there's a judge in heaven. All right? And he's going to exonerate us. Because the accusation that Esau Edom is trying to put for us is not true. Okay? So, that's pretty much the point. I just want to go through that lesson, man. A lot of our people, you know, they're going to regret avoiding the word of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, you know, and quote-unquote not having time for the Lord, because you're going to wish you had the wisdom and knowledge. You know, when Esau Edom comes in like that flood, all right, when a lot of you Israelites get taken and start getting tortured by Esau, all right, because the Lord going to put a nasty spirit. He already got a nasty spirit on Esau, man, but the Lord put that spirit on Esau to come down like that flood, man, come down with great wrath, start torturing you, your children, you know, you're going to wish you had taken heed to the prophets, or taking heed to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai via the prophets, man. You know, this is not a game. Okay, so Lord willing, this lesson was edifying. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai Ba'Shem Rakakwadash, and double honor to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the full here on this word and truth and in sincerity. Until next time, I say shalom.